Exchange building south of the square. So we are back in our offices, and we do meetings via Zoom, and because we have a large space, we're doing some in-person meetings. But we're still doing most of our events that we miss having live on these webinars, and so that kind of shoves a lot of information. All of you should have, if you didn't get a copy of these slides already, you will after today. So after today, we're going to send you a set of my slides. Also, Christy Davenport from Bank OZK is going to show you some slides in a little bit, and we'll send those. So don't feel like if I'm going too fast, you know, we've tried, this is normally a 2-hour webinar, and we've tried to do that, and people just felt like it was too long. So instead, I'm going to zip through the info, but you're going to have the info, these exact copies. So do know that. And yes, my experience has been working with 100% small businesses, solopreneurs, dreaming entrepreneurs, experienced business people in Northwest Arkansas for 8 years. So that's my background. Everything I'm going to tell you is something that I've seen in regard to what helps entrepreneurs expand or start small businesses. And this series, Her Entrepreneur, for 2020 is sponsored by Bank OZK, a wonderful community bank and a large regional bank in our area. And Odwin, are you online with us? Odwin, the market president, was trying to get online. He was having, yes, he is. Odwin, would you like to say hello to everybody for a second? I don't know if he can. All right. So Christy, do you want to say hi? You're going to talk in a little bit about retail. Do you want to say hi to everyone for a second?
Hi everyone. I'm a business development officer for Bank OZK in Benton County. I'm housed out of our Rogers location, and I will give you my contact information at the end of the presentation.
Great, great. All right, so we're very appreciative that we've already done this duo series of the first week of the month, getting your business idea off the ground, and then we'll have that. I'm going to have a slide about it at the end. The last Tuesday of this month, we're going to have Bank OZK back with another loan officer to talk to us about funding options for small businesses. Everything from crowdfunding to online lenders to what we most recommend here at Startup Junkie, which is community bank supporters. So we're very appreciative of this. We are here to talk, and I've got information in these slides for you about the importance of women in business ownership. A lot of the information I'm going to give to you today is the same information I would have given a man about the difference between being a solopreneur and having an LLC. But women business owners in Arkansas were reclassified to be part of the Minority Business Program in 2017 because we are lagging behind the rest of the country. Only 25–26% of small businesses in Arkansas are owned by women, and that's not good enough for our state. So having these series, having women see themselves as small business owners or as entrepreneurs is really vital to us. There's a link, and you can go look it up, that I did an article for the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal. You can just Google it. Let's not forget the history of progress for women. And it's about the need for women to support each other and our history, how until 1978, a bank could require you to have your husband or your father co-sign before you were allowed to open a business checking account. Things like that historically disadvantaged women. And so that article of mine is out there, and you can access it online. And it's a really good history about the struggles women have had and the amazing progress women have made since a lot of those laws were changed. I also am sharing with you here lots of local assistance resources to help women. Groups that specifically, they'll help just about anyone, but they do, as directed by our state, really want to support women. And so that's our University of Arkansas ASBTDC. All of the chambers of commerce in Northwest Arkansas have a commitment to women and minority business development, and they have officers who will help you with that. SCORE, which is sponsored also by the Small Business Administration, like the ASBTDC, because the SBA is part of the government, is very focused on supporting women and minorities and disabled veterans. We have the Brewer Family Entrepreneurship Hub at the University of Arkansas. They have a wonderful team that supports women entrepreneurs there. You do have to have a University of Arkansas connection for their services. PTAC, we're going to be having a webinar October 15th with the Rogers Lowell Chamber with the Arkansas Procurement and Technical Assistance Center. This is a division of the state of Arkansas where they help women bid on government contracts for tech work, landscaping, food product sales, for contracts that are set aside for women. And so be watching. You can follow us on our startupjunkie.org website and hit our events tab, and you'll see that we're going to have that 2-hour webinar with the SBA and PTAC. The Arkansas Food Innovation Center, located out on Garland Avenue in Fayetteville. They have a team there that has helped many women food entrepreneurs I know launch their products. We have a state Arkansas Women's Business Center. It is in South Arkansas, but there's their website that's in your slides. You could look that up. There are local networking groups where you can go mix and mingle with other women. Wynn and Rogers, Woman Run, Meredith Lowry, a local attorney in Fayetteville, heads that up for the Northwest Arkansas and Little Rock groups. Siloam Springs has a Women in Business group that meets often, several times each quarter. Hustle and Heels is a women's networking group, a division of the Rogers Lowell Area Chamber of Commerce, and you don't have to be a chamber member to attend those events. And then I've listed some national ones. So we can see that we have lots of local support. Supporting women entrepreneurs is a very vital part of our mission here at Startup Junkie as well. So what we're going to launch into now is to talk about the launch. And the launch may be that you've been doing something a little bit on the side, but now you want to take it to the next level. Or you may just have an idea that's been roaming around your head for months, and you're not sure exactly what you want to do with that, or if it's even a good idea to do that. And so this lean canvas map is something that we start people with at Startup Junkie. And sometimes we pull it out and revisit it with our business owners. And it's a public story. We never divulge that we've ever met with any client or talked to any person unless they want us to promote their business. And so one that's been on our podcast and that I have personally worked with since 2015 is Natalie and Luke Freeman of Freckled Hen Farmhouse. They were working out of a barn at their house when they started. And every few months, a year, I meet with them and talk to them. And we always go back to the original mission of Freckled Hen and Freckled Hen Farmhouse. And I love doing that. And I will tell you, the smartest business owners do this. You don't actually have to have a formal business plan until you start oftentimes seeking funding. But at minimum, you really do need to write it down. And when I tell you that writing it down and having a plan and examining your idea for your business or your ideas for growth, it really matters. On the screen, you'll see in the middle, what is probably the most important part of this to me is your unique value proposition. There has to be something unique because the world, it's so rare today that anything brand new is invented or any new type of business emerges. You can be doing something. You may want to open a new nail salon in Fayetteville. Well, there are lots of nail salons in Fayetteville. But what's unique about yours? It can be that you have an idea for a special type of nail process. It can be the location. There's not one in this part of Bentonville. There's not a nail salon in this section of Fayetteville that has open parking. Sometimes the unique value proposition can be those things, but there has to be something unique. It may be you. Maybe your experience in the industry or something special you've done, but that's one to always be concentrating on. And there has to be, over on the left, you'll see a problem. What is the problem or the issue or the thing that people want that they can't get well or quickly or quality that you can provide? And so then right beside that, you have to be able to tell what that solution is. And to the far right, customer segments. That's what's going to cause this to change. Sometimes you may launch an idea, launch a product, launch a store, and customers keep asking for something or something extra, or they don't like something. That's why over time, this is going to evolve and constantly change. I remember talking to Natalie Freeman last year about adding jewelry. She never intended to have jewelry at Freckled Hen Farmhouse. It's kind of a country home decor place. But she added jewelry and it exploded because that's what her customers wanted. So speaking of the founder owner, your experience in the industry is key. And that really, really matters. I've had people back when I was a small business banker contact me about a loan because they'd done research and they said, oh, this is a hot franchise. I want to get a loan and open this franchise because it's doing really well and I'll make lots of money. And this is where I always started. Okay, what's your experience running a coffee shop? What's your experience with a lash lounge? What's your experience with people and in retail? And if the person couldn't answer that with a positive answer, I wasn't going to be comfortable making a loan, even if it was the hottest franchise in America. Who's going to run the daily operations? Who's going to keep the books? Now, when you start getting to managing finance, that is something that you can hire accountants or bookkeepers to help you with, but you as the owner are still going to have to understand the process and be intimately involved in that. Who's going to perform the services or deal with the customers directly or the orders online? You may have invented the most wonderful woman's scarf ever that everybody in the world's going to want. But if you don't know how to operate an online sales system, you're going to need to get some assistance with that. What's the status of the market? Market size is really important. Sometimes the reason that we've never had a certain store or a certain type of service business in Northwest Arkansas is because we're not big enough. So we need to look at market size. We need to be sure there's a demand for your product or service. And once again, is the demand met by your unique value proposition, what you can bring to the market? And what's the competition? When I was a banker and people would call me to talk about getting a loan and opening a new type of store, I was always a little disappointed when I would start asking them about how they're going to compete with this store in Bentonville and this place in Lowell, and they had never heard of those stores. That bothered me a little bit as a banker, that you hadn't taken the time yet to research your competition. That is vital to the process, because I got news for you. Once people find out you're coming or you're opening your store, your competitors are going to be watching you and looking at your products. You're going to have to start getting some idea. We're not going to spend a lot of time in this webinar talking about financing, but you have to do the footwork. You have to do the online searching. You have to make the phone calls to figure out what the startup costs are. If you're just going to launch an online business, you're going to need to contact a marketing company if you don't know how to build your own website. You're going to have to research which software is best to correspond with your website for entering the information into your accounting system and for your payments. You need to start projecting some future sales and profits and figuring out what your break-even point is to make sure you're going to make some money doing this. This becomes even more vital if you're going to seek a loan. So some of the basics are to first decide what point you're at. And this is something we help people with a lot here at the Startup Junkie Foundation. Because our services are free due to funding from the Walton Family Foundation, we'll talk to anyone, anywhere that is in Northwest Arkansas or opening a business here. And so sometimes the very basic is a person is doing a service like alterations or mobile detail from their home. And if there's not a lot of risk involved and not a lot of liability, sometimes those people start by just getting a doing business as certificate filed in the county courthouse, and we can walk you through that. They just open a basic business account, and they don't even need to form an LLC or a separate entity and have a tax ID number. That is just called a solo entrepreneur or a sole proprietor. And so that's one way you can do that. And that's there on your right-hand side. Partnerships used to be when you just had two sole proprietors together. There's no reason to do that now, because if you're going to have more than one person involved, you need to switch over to the left side and at minimum form an LLC. And that stands for limited liability company. So if you're going to be putting a product out there that people eat or that touches their skin, if you're going to be going to other people's homes, touching their property, transporting people in any way, or if you're going to have some contracts that there could be a dispute about payment, it's best to go ahead and form the limited liability company. And then you just now wear two hats. One hat is you with your social security number. Hat two is you as the member and maybe the member manager of the LLC. And if there's more than 2 of you, maybe you're 50-50 or 60-40 in your membership. Now, the C corporation is very large. That's more than 100 shareholders. Some people do form S corps. That's what we used before the LLCs came around. But S corporations, anytime it's a corporation instead of an LLC, it's a little more complicated because you have shares and you have to keep minutes of meetings, and the shares can be bought and sold, versus with the limited liability company, that is controlled by an operating agreement, and you can't just go sell your membership or give it to someone else. We have lots of small business attorneys in Northwest Arkansas that very, very inexpensively, for $300 to $700, will form your entire LLC for you, draft your operating agreement, and help you get that tax number. So the name is not preserved and is not yours just because you file with the Secretary of State. That just means that somebody else has not filed for that name already. So this is why we talk about hiring a local attorney or an accountant to help you. These are not thousands and thousands of dollars. They're a few $100s. This is a team that you build, especially if you're going to have contracts in the future. Like if you're going to open a house cleaning service, you're going to have a contract with the homeowner. If you're going to do a lawn service, you're going to have a contract with the business where you go and do that every month. So the attorney not only can help you set up the LLC, but also give you a little template, a drafted contract that you know is legal in the state of Arkansas. Permits, licenses, and taxes. If you're selling a food product, there is a law called the Arkansas Cottage Law where you can make the food product in your home and sell it privately to people you know, or at registered farmers markets. But other than that, you're going to have to deal with the Arkansas Department of Health. You can't make foods in your kitchen home and then take it to coffee shops and sell it to the public. Every city in Northwest Arkansas has different rules about city licenses, even for home offices. Everyone is completely different. And so I know some of the standards and requirements for some of the main cities, but recently I had to deal with someone who needed a home office license in Elkins, and theirs is totally different than any other city in Northwest Arkansas I've seen. So those are the things you'll have to navigate. Zoning, some of the new housing additions in Northwest Arkansas do not allow a home office. Not even a home office. And you say, well, my neighbors will never know. I'm just going to be operating this online store at my computer. Nobody will know. I can do this. Well, if you start having a FedEx truck in your driveway 7 times a day, I promise you your neighbors are going to notice. And if they turn you into the city, you're going to get shut down. So these are some of the things we need to discuss from the get-go with you. Record keeping. Keep records of everything you do, even if you're early launch. If you go buy a computer and some equipment to start a business with your personal funds, be sure and document that, because in the future, as your business grows, that can be seen as your cash equity injection in the business when you need a loan in 4 or 5 years. And you don't want to have to come up with more cash equity injection when you've already spent $5,000 buying lawnmowers and computer equipment. So be keeping track of this. At minimum, set up a basic business account. Even if you don't get a tax ID number, put all the income there from the business and take the expenses out. This is going to help you with reporting this on your personal tax return on a Schedule C the next year, or if you end up with the LLC and fully go to that level, that might be a separate tax return. Keep copies of all these receipts. Either scan them or keep them in a file. Insurance is vital. If you start operating a home-based business, and especially if you're letting people come to your house, you need to let your home insurance company know that. Because when you filled out the form for home insurance 6 years ago, you probably checked no on business operations. If you're delivering food from a food truck and you're using your personal vehicle, you need to be checking with the insurance company. One of the things we have here at Startup Junkie is we have a file of all the local business agents who regularly do small business insurance. Multi-line, single line, they're people that have been referred to us by our clients, and we have that information to share with you. Business interruption insurance becomes very important, especially if you have food-based business or a business that's vital to being open to the public, you know, for a snowstorm or anything like that. Personnel. When we start really getting into the things that are sticky is when we start hiring employees, because we now have federal tax, state tax, workers' comp. Some people get to a point where they have enough steady income, they want to set themselves up as an employee of the company. And at that point, you have a discussion with your accountant about maybe you are going to keep your LLC. It's exactly the same, but your accountant can send a letter to the IRS requesting that you be taxed as an S Corp status. And then you just change tax returns, and that can provide some benefits to avoid the self-employment tax. A lot of my small business owners, especially when they haven't ever had a full-time employee before, they don't know what questions they can and can't ask in interviews. They don't have an employee handbook. I advise them to go talk to some of the local staffing companies. And this can help you get used to having an employee. They take the burden of the hiring, the firing, the payroll. And so say you want to hire someone at $10 an hour to run the front desk for you 3 days a week while you do other things with your business. They'll hire that person and you'll send the staffing company $14 or $15 an hour instead of the 10 that goes to that person. But it gives you a chance to learn the process, and it takes that burden off of you of learning, because 1 employee or 10 employees, you got to have a handbook. You got to know the hiring and firing practices and laws. You have to understand unemployment, all of those things. And so that's an option that we sometimes discuss with our smaller business owners. With the home-based business, I talked to you before about the zoning laws, making sure you can even do what you want to do, and that is going to vary from city to city. 2 things I want people, I've recently had clients tell me, I remember you telling me this years ago and I didn't listen to you, but they launched their small business using their personal cell phone. Now their business has gotten huge. They don't want to give up their personal cell number because they've had it for 14 years, but now all these people have their cell phone number. So think about early on adding a second line. Sometimes that's only $30 to $40 extra a month. Think about what address you're going to use for the business, but also be sure when you do your Google listing, and every business should have a Google Box business listing, even if it's home-based, you want to enter your physical address so that Google sends searches in your area to you, but you can alter it where the map doesn't show your home address. It can just show Northwest Arkansas or the state of Arkansas or the 4-state region. So thinking about those address issues are important early on also. Marketing. This is a conversation I have with people weekly, and it gives them a little sticker shock, and I get some pushback, but I will tell you, in the 8 years I have been doing this with Northwest Arkansas, I can tell you once, or I can sit here and say it 17 times in a row, you have to have a website. All right, you have to have a website. There are a lot of companies out there where you can create a website for free, and you just pick a template and it makes all these beautiful pages. And if you can type words and upload pictures, you can do a basic website. And then they will host you, put you on the World Wide Web so that you have just a .com, or if you're a nonprofit, a .org, for like $29, $39 a month. We also have some incredible, very small marketing companies in Northwest Arkansas who do nothing but website development for small business owners. Social media is meant to feed people to your website. Your website is your calling card to the world. It's what people can look at and get whatever information they want at the touch of their fingertips. Facebook is owned by Mark Zuckerberg and a board and a corporation. If you only have Facebook and Instagram, you don't own your marketing. And some mean person could lie to Facebook and say something terrible about you, and they could shut your Facebook down for 3 weeks. So you really need to have a website and then build the social media off of that. The Google business listing I talked to you about before, even if you don't have a brick and mortar store, when someone types in the name of your business, that Google box should show up with the basic contact info, pictures of your products or pictures of you. You also don't need every single social media. Only a major, huge business would have every single social media platform. You know, when I work with accountants and attorneys, I typically don't advise them to get an Instagram, but absolutely they need a Facebook because they can show articles of information and videos. If you're selling women's products or women's clothing or children's clothing, absolutely you need an Instagram. I'm not sure if you need a Twitter. And if you're a single sole proprietor, you can't manage all of those platforms. So seek some advice from people about that. You will need an advertising budget to launch. I tell people, if you can't build your own website, you know nothing about social media, you're going to have to budget at minimum around $10,000 to launch your marketing if you're like opening a store. If you're opening a major store, a physical building, a physical service that's going out into the community, Northwest Arkansas is very competitive. And people say to me all the time, well, I get all my referrals from word of mouth. I get everything from word of mouth. Word of mouth is very helpful, but this interrupts it. When you tell me to go somewhere or call someone, this stops it. I'm going to look them up. And if what I see here doesn't tell me the story, doesn't make me feel comfortable about this person coming to my home, doesn't make me feel comfortable about going to their restaurant or food truck and putting the food they prepare in my body, that stops the word of mouth. And that's why it's so vital for you to have a good online presence that tells your story and informs people and helps them to find you. Logos, colors, name, all that branding matters. Have you ever heard someone say the name of a store, the name of the business, and people make a face and they're like, what's that goofy name? The other thing with names is the more the name can tell what you do, the more money you are going to save on marketing. I worked with a store one time and they had a fabulous place on College Avenue. 42,000 cars a day went by. And when I looked at the sign, I couldn't tell what that business does because it was a generic name. You know, an example I give people is there's nothing wrong with the name Caboodles, but you need to say Caboodles Dog Shop or Caboodles Children's Clothes or Caboodles for Women. Give people some idea of what Caboodles is because it's going to save you having to explain that in your marketing. Taxes are vital, especially if you're selling goods. You have got to understand sales and use tax. I used to operate and produce a sales and use tax seminar when I worked for the Small Business Center at the Walton College, and I had to bring in an expert to do that because every state is different. There are nuances to taxes that are so confusing. You really have to work with an accountant or someone in sales and use tax to be sure you understand, and especially with the new online sales world. If you start having employees, obviously, that is very, very important. You're required to take certain taxes out of their check and pay certain taxes for them as an employer. There are unemployment taxes. In Arkansas, every year after you file the LLC, you're not done. Every year you have to send what's called a franchise, an annual tax to the state of Arkansas to keep your LLC in good standing. Folks, your LLC only exists in the office of the Arkansas Secretary of State in Little Rock. And if they say you're revoked, you don't exist anymore. Your insurance isn't valid. Your business is susceptible to liabilities. That was the whole point to secure it. And I've had so many clients who move, forget to tell the Secretary of State, they don't get their annual fee notice and don't pay their tax, and they're suspended. So you have to really start taking responsibility for tracking and understanding all of these different aspects. Banking is vital. I worked with a lady who all I did was help her very, very simply with her little side business out of her home. The first thing we did was file a doing business as certificate with the county, $25. She gave her legal notice to the county that she was operating this very, very small business in her home. She went to the city of Fayetteville and got a home office license because no one comes to her house. No business operations go on other than this one thing she does in a back office of her home. But the next thing we did was have her open a business checking account, which you can do with just your social security number. It is vital to keep those records and have that business account. It also gives credibility to you for in the future, maybe seeking a business credit card or further getting a loan someday. It also keeps you from co-mingling your personal money and your business money. It's all your money, but when you start operating a business, you wear two hats. You're a personal individual and you're also a business owner. And so now I want to turn the screen over to Christy Davenport from Bank OZK, because I will tell you, people are always so shocked at all of the things a local community bank will do for you when you just open a basic business account there. They have so many experts and so many people to help you. And half the time, all of those things they'll do for you are free because you're their bank customer. And then they have very affordable packages that will blend well and work with your account for payment systems and tracking and accounting. So Christy, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you want to share your screen, I'm going to stop sharing mine.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming on today. Real quick, let me get this shared. Can you all see my screen or my, you
Yep.
can? Okay, awesome. Uh-oh, messed it up. Okay, I'll introduce myself. I'm Christy Davenport. I am a business development officer for Bank OZK here in Benton County, Arkansas. I have 20 years of banking experience, with over 14 of those years at Bank OZK. I've been a consumer lender, branch manager, a teller. I've done a variety of duties within the bank, so I have a little bit of knowledge of all of those. Bank OZK has over 100-year history, and recently in April we were named the #1 capitalized bank in the U.S. We are a rock-solid bank and can service any of your banking needs. Additionally, in June, the bank was named the world's best bank by Forbes. So we are a very strong, well-capitalized bank, and have different we have 13 locations here in Northwest Arkansas to service your needs. We have 3 in Fayetteville, 2 in Springdale, 1 in Siloam Springs, 3 Rogers, 2 Bentonville, and 2 Bella Vista. So we are around for you if you need anything, whether you're in Fayetteville or North Bella Vista. We have some great lenders. We have several commercial lenders that do our small business lending. Of course, we have Odwin Bond, who's on the call today. We also have Austin Simpson out of the New Hope branch. He is out of Fayetteville as well. He does both Washington and Benton County. Jason Wallace is in our Washington County office. There in Fayetteville. And then we have a new lender, Tim Doyle, that is also available to assist us with your lending needs. This was a little bit of a snippet of we're #1 capitalized major bank in the U.S. Right here in your backyard. We can service any of your needs. I'm going to go on to the next slide. At Bank OZK, we have several options for you, whether it's a very small business checking account. This is a no service fee account. It is for your startups, for your smaller transaction volume. It's $100 to open any of the checking accounts here. With these small business checking, it's 250 combined items at no cost. So again, that's a no service fee. If you go over the 250 combined items, and that is including your checking deposits, the checks that you deposit, and the checks that you write, There's no minimum balance requirement on the small business checking. This is the go-to for your small business accounts. Our online banking is free. This is a non-interest bearing. We also provide you debit cards for your business at no cost to you. As your business grows, and you need a larger account, we'll put you over into the business growth checking account. Again, that service fee can be waived. It's a $20 monthly service fee, but it can be waived if you have a $15,000 average collected balance. So that is another good product if you can maintain once you get to that level. On to the next slide. The benefits of your checking account. We do have online banking. Mobile banking is at no cost. We can also do remote deposit capture. What that does, it comes through our treasury management services. You can make your deposits. If you are a check only, you can make your deposits right there from your office. You don't have to visit the location, the branches. We can set you up with a program and a machine to allow you to make those deposits right there during your personal business hours. It costs, helps you with time management. You don't have to get out to go to the bank and wait in those lines. So it's an easy thing. E-statements is another great asset to you. You can gather your information, download it, and it can go into your, I'm trying to think of the word, I can't remember what word it is, but download it into your program that you have. I'm sorry, I just slipped. Of course, we have the instant issue debit cards, free merchant services. If you are going to collect or payments through debit cards or credit cards, you will need a merchant service processor. We have a great partner, First Data, Fiserv. They are one of the largest merchant service processors, and we partnership with them. They have some great products and that allows you to, whether you're going to do it on your website or if you're going to have a physical machine, they have what you need to collect those payments with that. Let's see. Some of our other treasury services is our ACH products. So that's, again, whether you're going to collect payments electronically or you're going to send your payments electronically to your accounts payable. You also want to look, when you're looking for a bank account, you also want to look into a fraud or risk control. There are lots of fraud out there, and if they get your information, or for the fraudsters get your information, they can hack into your checking, your account, and you want that protection on top. Let the bank have that. We have what we call positive pay product. They can stop that and monitor that for you with your assistance. So you also want some funds management. Check to see if you have overdraft protection, just for your, if something comes out that you're not aware of, you don't want to have something sent back or returned. But you want that protection on your account too. We also have a mobile wallet. A lot of this stuff can be researched on our website. I don't know how much time I have, but I didn't go into detail. If you have questions, please feel free to contact me. Information you're going to need to open an account, you're going to need the personal information, your address, the address of your business. What percentage of ownership do you have of that business? Are you going to be 100%, 50%? Are you going to be partnership? Are you going to incorporate it? We're always going to want an email address and a phone number for you. The legal name of the business, tax ID number, whether you use the Social Security number or a tax ID number for your corporations or LLCs. So that, be prepared to have that documentation. Some of the documentation regarding whether you're a partnership, your limited partnership, limited liability company is very popular. Or if you're going to be a corporation for profit. You will need a business license, and in some instances, you may need a partnership agreement if you're going to be a partnership, go into partnership with someone, operating agreement or bylaws. If you're going to be a 501c, you're going to need that letter. Certificate of authority to do business. If you're going to be doing business as sole proprietorship, you may need that. We're also going to ask you for your identification for the beneficial owners, which is the owner of the, owners on all of them. We're going to want to know who you are, and to be able to identify you. Odwin and I are always available. There is our contact information. He is our market president. Not sure if he has something to add to this, but he is more than welcome to jump on here. He is in our Bentonville location on Walton Boulevard. There's his office and cell phone is odwin.bond@ozk.com, and my information is there. I'm a business development officer in Rogers. So, Odwin, I'll let you have it.
Thank you,
Well,
Chris.
thanks. Thank you, Christy.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
you can.
Okay. I'm not going to take too much time because I want to get back to hear what Martha's got to say. She does such a phenomenal job, and we feel very privileged to get to co-sponsor this along with Startup Junkie. And we're just, as a bank, the one takeaway that I'll just say is we can talk about all of our locations and our size and stuff, but the key thing for me in all this is we love working with small businesses. That is one thing that if you leave from here, just know that we are eager to sit down, talk, listen, hear what you got going on, whether you're just now starting and you've got an idea or you've been in business for years like Natalie has now that Martha mentioned. We would love to work with you. And not only small business, but as some of the numbers and things that I've learned from Martha, just the need for women-owned businesses to be very successful and have opportunities to grow. So we're excited about supporting that. You just can't know. This is, I get fired up when I get to thinking about what all the good things that are going on out there. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Martha, but thanks so much for each of your willing to participate in this.
Thank you, Odwin. And we appreciate Bank OZK caring about women entrepreneurship by sponsoring this. That's very, to me, empowering to women to see that banks are specifically saying we want to assist women entrepreneurs. And I love everything Christy said because I have horror stories to go with all the things she lined out for you. I had a client that I was funding to go from a food truck to a brick and mortar, and they were getting their first bank loan. And I said, anything you're about to do or sign, come talk to me first. Okay, we'll run everything by you. And sure enough, they went and signed up with a payment system corporation that was bugging them and signed the contract. And I'm like, no, we'll do the payment system through the bank. Then it's going to roll into your accounts that we have here. They signed up with this company that doesn't take American Express, and their restaurants in Bentonville. I almost had a heart attack. So you need to talk to people locally who will help you instead of some dude that's calling you from a 1-800, payment system in California. Work with local people. You can't have a restaurant in Bentonville, Arkansas that doesn't take American Express. I mean, that's horrible. So let these people talk to you, have this community bank. By setting up a basic business bank account now, even though you're tiny, you don't need a loan. In a year or two, you may need a line of credit. You may need some extra funds to buy inventory. You've already got the business banking relationship. You've got the business account. You go see a loan officer. They drop line of credit funds into your business bank account. So starting out with these very basic things may seem very simple now, but they're going to be extremely helpful to you in the future. So, like I said, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking on financing because that is not the main, this is an overview. We're going to do this again. I'm going to have a slide at the end, and you can go to our Startup Junkie website. We're going to have this Her Entrepreneur Journey and talk about specifically for an hour just about business financing. But the basics are, most people do. They start very small micro businesses with their own savings or funds from friends and family. What I'm telling you at this point is open a basic business bank account so you can track that. So that when you need a loan in a few years and the bank says, okay, we'll loan you $100,000 to open a small store, but you need to prove that you've invested 10%. You have to have 10% down. If you can prove that you've already spent 10,000 of your personal funds the last few years, then you've got that, but you have to document it. If all you need is a piece of equipment, leasing companies are very good for that. We're going to talk about different things about financing. If you go to seek a loan, make sure before you sign any contracts, don't get all excited about a location and sign a 5-year lease before you know that loan's going to close. Don't assume you can get a bank loan. There are different restrictions and requirements that have to be met. Sometimes that includes credit score. Sometimes that includes years on the job previously or what the other sources of income are going to be. And don't ever expect 100%. You're always going to have some skin in the game. You're going to have to invest something of your own, at least probably 10% of the total startup need. There are going to be 2 kinds of loans that we're going to talk about more in depth at the end of the month in the financing one. A lot of people have heard about the SBA because of the COVID crisis. So the United States Small Business Administration is a corporation owned by the federal government that encourages banks to make very risky small business and startup loans by guaranteeing them to banks that qualify. And those loans, you're more likely to get an SBA loan through an SBA lender like Bank OZK. We have several banks in Northwest Arkansas that do SBA loans because the bank is given that guarantee. And so they're going to be more likely to lend to you. Those loans will have floating interest rates. The great thing about a government-backed loan is they're going to give you pieces of paper that tell you exactly what the terms are. You don't have to worry, like if you go on to some online lender, they're going to have little typed sentences that are very small. It gets confusing. Is it a 3% daily fee or is that a 3% interest rate? That's where you have to watch those traps with those online lenders. An SBA loan, a bank loan from your local community bank, you will have a piece of paper in front of you that very clearly tells you what the terms are and what the requirements are. The SBA loans, if you get approved, can be for a longer term than an in-house bank loan, so your monthly payment's lower. There is a fee, but the bank can loan you that fee. So we have to have fees with SBA loans. That's a fee that the bank collects from your loan or from you and sends to the SBA in Washington, D.C. And then that's what funds the SBA Small Business Center for Women in South Arkansas. That's what funds our local ASBTDC at the University of Arkansas. That's what funds SBA programs for veterans. And that's what funds the SBA to exist to encourage banks to make these risky loans. But do be prepared that you're going to have proof of a 10% cash or equipment value injection into the business in the future. Now, banks also have their own loan policy. So any bank in Northwest Arkansas, there's a PDF copy or a book, and it's called Our Bank In-House Loan Policy. And in most of those, it says, we discourage loans to new businesses and startups, because they're very risky. That's why dealing with a bank that is part of the SBA program is so great, because that takes that risk off the bank. You have to realize banks are so heavily regulated that the FDIC, the bank regulators, state and federal, are constantly making sure, especially after what happened in this country in 08 and 09, that everything is legit up front, is safe to protect us all from any sort of bank collapse. But if you have a better credit score, if you have some land, if you own a piece of land or have high equity in a piece of land, and that can be a piece of collateral. If you are, say, two partners, a husband and wife, or two sisters, and the two of you are partners and one of you has a lake house that's free and clear, or some acreage in South Fayetteville that's free and clear. If you have more collateral like that, that makes your loan less risky, then these in-house bank loans can really be great. They're going to have a lower interest rate. They might not have as long a term, but they can offer some really good options. These are typically not available for startups unless you've got a cosigner. You've got a parent or an Aunt Sally or an Uncle Jim who's willing to cosign or put up a piece of land, and especially in Northwest Arkansas, land is gold. It's some of the most valid and safe collateral there is. And the great thing is, if you can get an in-house loan, you're just working with that bank and that bank's direction from its board of directors and those individual loan officers. They don't have to get permission from Washington, D.C. or the Little Rock State Office, get advice for following the SBA guide. So we need both of these. And oftentimes I will have businesses that start out with SBA loans at like the micro lender Forge in Huntsville, and then go to a local SBA bank. And then years later, they've got some equity and they got 4 years of good books showing they are just really profitable. And then they might progress to an in-house bank loan. These are the elements of a formal business plan. And if you're going to approach a bank for a line of credit or a small loan to expand your business, you're going to have to go beyond that lean canvas we first looked at. And you're going to have to start really making some spreadsheets and some projections. You're going to have to show the bank, this is our profit loss statement for the last 2 years. This is this new line we want to add, or this is the second location we want to open. And if we add this new line, we're going to generate this much income. We'll of course have this expense. If we add this second location based upon, here's our customer list. We've recently discovered that 36% of our customers are in Bentonville. We're going to be able to grow the business, and you're going to project out for the bank and say, if you give us this loan, we're going to have this much more income. Yes, these expenses, but our profit's going to grow, and we can make this loan payment to you for the next 7 or 10 years, or if it involves purchasing real estate, maybe 20 years. And so you're going to have to get a little more detailed in proving to the bank why they should take the risk and become partners with you in this growth and make you this loan. And we have resources, the Small Business Center at the University of Arkansas. It's just located about 3 blocks from us. They will help you physically prepare these cash flow projections. Typically what I like is people to meet with me first, and I'll save you some of the time before you go to them and make sure that you're getting really good estimates for these startup costs or these expansion costs. Make sure you've put together a good description of the company. Your QuickBooks is working correctly, because you know, QuickBooks, what I say is junk in, junk out. If you've always done your QuickBooks on your own and never had any help from an accountant or a bookkeeper, you might want to have a little checkup, have a little audit of your QuickBooks to make sure those reports are good. I've seen some really squirrely QuickBooks reports come out on my clients' computers, and I'm like, this makes no sense. So why don't you go talk to, here's a list of local bookkeepers, and they do an audit, and they had some categories wrong. They weren't coding things right. And so the business was good, but the report looked bad. So you'll want to do some of those things before you go to a bank. This is my contact info. You can always call me. That's my business cell. You can email me there. You can always go to the startupjunkie.org site and go to team, and there's a drop down, and it has our bios. It has a way to contact us. We've been doing meetings on Zoom for about 2.5 years. We're Zoomers. We're also we have large rooms here. We're doing some social distancing. If you do have to wear a mask in the building, because our building is owned by the University of Arkansas, and we're following their guidelines very, very strictly. And then we have large rooms where we can meet with people, and I just do phone calls with people also. I really want to thank Bank OZK. I love it. One thing I think Christy forgot to mention is Bank OZK is large and regional and been around since 1903, but it is Arkansas based. So it started in Arkansas, and it is a bank that has a true heart for Arkansas, even though it's become very, very national. It is still a very much an Arkansas community bank. September 29th is when we're going to do this again with the Bank OZK team. And in that one, I'm only going to talk about all the different financing ways. Even I have 3 slides on what to do if your grandma or your Aunt Sally is going to loan you money. We're going to talk about that. You don't just go pick up the money from Aunt Sally. There's a process for that needs to be followed. And that can have ramifications on your ability to get a loan in the future if you don't do that right, and what the benefits of that are and what the downside. So even at that level, we're going to talk about that level of financing. So I hope you sign up and can join us for that one. And now I'm going to exit my screen so I can see if there are any questions in the chat, and I don't see any. But if anybody wants to unmute yourself, and you can wave at me if you want to and can't, and I will unmute you. But if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, feel free. And if you're not comfortable asking a question in front of everyone, you've got my email address, and you can email me and we can set up some kind of appointment. And I'm more than happy to talk to you on the phone. You are never wasting my time. I am funded at this foundation by the Walton Family Foundation to talk to people. I get paid to talk to you about your ideas. If you're in Northwest Arkansas, we're here, and no idea is ridiculous and no idea is too small. Let's see. Okay, I do see a question from Amy. If we have more than one type of business, do we need to register each one? And I hate to say this, Amy, but that depends. All right, so if the 2 businesses are totally different and operating in totally different worlds, one is selling food, cookies and cupcakes, and might go to a food truck, and one is selling women's clothing. You might be able to have just one LLC for the food business and just have the clothing. It could, if it's an LLC, it could have a fictitious name for that. There's not as much liability with that, especially if it's like t-shirts or something about the food business. But if you can separate it, that's usually a better idea, because the insurance for the food business is going to be a lot more expensive than for the clothing side. And if the clothing side takes off, you don't want the assets for the food truck to be subject to, if there was a lawsuit or a contractual dispute, say you were supposed to get so much clothes out to a store for Christmas season and you didn't get it out, and they sued you because you failed to bring them all the clothing items and they lost money. You don't want the assets of the food truck put at risk because you had a failed contract for the clothing side. So typically, if the businesses are very different and you think they might both grow in their own way, it is best to have 2 separate entities. I hope that helps. I'm seeing if anybody else, and somebody said, can we get a copy of the presentation? You should have already gotten one, but if you signed up later today, you didn't. But as soon as we're done today, we're going to do a resend of my presentation in a PDF and Christie's. So yes, you will get that if it wasn't already connected to your Zoom invite that you got yesterday and earlier today from us at Startup Junkie. And if by chance you don't get that, you can always just email me directly and I'll be happy to send it to you. You're not bothering me if you don't have it by tomorrow. I think that's all the questions. Does anybody else have a question they want to ask live? Okay, well, we're actually, I think On time. Whew. I've actually never done this presentation in an hour. So I like it that you have all the slides, and it is an overview, you know, and every business is so very different. There are such nuances with each type. And a lot of times in Northwest Arkansas, my advice to you is totally different if you're starting your business in Fayetteville versus West Fork or Bentonville. So do feel free to reach out to us. Once again, Startup Junkie Foundation is a 501c3. We're funded by the Walton Family Foundation and other sponsors like Bank OZK. And you'll sometimes see like Cox Business supports us, and that's so our services are free. Even though I have a law degree, even though Morgan is an HR professional and Taylor has a finance degree, our services are free of charge, never a charge for any of our services, as long as your business has less than 500 employees and less than 20 million in revenue. So if you're in that range, we're here to help you. So, all right. Thank you for coming today. Thanks for your help, Morgan, Christy, Audwin. Good to see y'all.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay. Reach out anytime, everyone.